And in 3, 2, 1. Hey, we're back. Happier at Home PRN podcast with Debbie Marcello, founder of Happier at Home. Debbie, it's great to see you. We keep meeting up at these pharmacy conferences. I love running into you, the energy that you bring. We had a great time at the Profit Summit Live in Dallas. It was so good to see you.
Yes, we did. It was a lot of fun. Todd and I were actually dancing together and had it videotaped. So
We did.
that was
Nice.
pretty cool. It was one of those photo booths that was interactive almost. So I thought, hey, what the hell?
Do it.
So it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. And we made a lot of great connections. You interviewed me there, and as well as so many others for an episode of your podcast as well. So it was great to see you and to see Brady. It was always wonderful. So today I'm very excited to have Trent Voelkl with us. Trent is one of the owners of Buffalo Pharmacies in Buffalo, New York, and I'm coming to you from Rochester, New York. But I wanted to tell you how incredible this person is. I've known him for probably 6 years, I think, maybe a little bit longer. 7. Yep. And he is my OG, my original gangster of our Happier at Home. Trent and I met, and we'll talk about our journey and how he got to become one of our first franchisees of Happier at Home. So welcome, Trent. It's so nice to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Seeing you as well, and Todd, good seeing you again.
Thank you so much. So do you remember how it was? I do, but I'm just testing you. Do you remember how you connected with me?
So, as a matter of fact, so we had been looking for different ways to differentiate our pharmacy and services that we provide. You know, we do retail pharmacy, and at that time, durable medical equipment, and then we have a long-term care pharmacy, a closed door pharmacy. And we were looking at different revenue streams and different ideas. So I knew that companion care at that time, I think it was about 7 years ago that we started looking at it. And I did a Google search of companion care companies, and, a bunch came up, and I saw that Happier at Home was based in Rochester, New York. And so I had put a inquiry in, and I believe it was Trisha who had reached out to me and gave me kind of the pro forma as to how things work and all of that. And then we did, we were interested and we wanted to explore more. So Alec and I drove out to Rochester and met with you, and we did a couple site visits with you and some interviews that you had done and stuff like that to kind of give us a taste of what, a daily routine would be. And from there, we decided that we were going to go ahead with it and did our training, and then, kicked off with the Happier at Home. And it's been a great ride. And, we just picked up a location in Texas with Happier at Home as well. So, it's been a fabulous 7 years or so of working with Debbie.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you too, especially knowing how open you are with new ideas, your entrepreneurial spirit. I remember when you and Alec Gillies came to Rochester to visit us at my office. And I do have to mention, one of the things I hear from those that are looking into a Happier at Home franchise, everyone, I think every single one of them asks about staffing and concerns with staffing. And I do remember that was one of the things that you and Alec asked me about. So that, can you tell us a little bit about that? I know this isn't the direction we're going, but I just want people to understand that it's not as scary as it all seems, because I
Right.
know in the pharmacy world, it is difficult with staffing, with your
Right.
pharmacy techs and that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I think it's kind of a nasty quote unquote stereotype, so to speak, that everybody's like, oh God, companion care, the staffing is going to be an issue. It definitely is one of the more top priorities that any person is going to have to deal with on a routine weekly basis, but it's not as bad as what everybody makes it out to be. So it's really, yes, it is a factor that's going to have to be considered and dealt with on a frequent basis, but it's not like, doom and gloom, the sky is falling with it. It's a little bit more challenging, but I think that has become less of an issue because I think hiring in general, doesn't matter what business it is, brings those challenges with it. So, I don't honestly see it as being any worse or better than any other industry that's out there. If anything, I think it's sometimes maybe a little bit easier in some instances to get people because people have the freedom when they're working as a caregiver to pick and choose the assignments, the days and the times that they want to work. Um, and it also allows them that they're not going to an office or to a nursing home or an assisted living facility. They're going to somebody's home, and there's, it's not the same environment. They're able to change up their environment. It's different things all the time. So while they work for us, they're almost kind of like an independent contractor because they can pick and choose what assignments they want. So they can, kind of dictate what type of, workload they want, how many hours they want to work, what times they want to work, rather than being told, okay, you have to be here at this time. You're working 9 to 5 and you're on D wing and you're passing meds and it's the same thing. It's Groundhog Day. With this, it offers people a lot of opportunity for change and diversity. So I think a lot of caregivers have started to recognize that. And the pay in the private sector, like with Happier at Home, is generally more competitive than what they're getting in a facility. So, a lot of those caregivers are starting to come over and realize that.
Yeah. And with our training and everything like that, we have the system set up with how to recruit, who to recruit,
Right.
employee retention, things like that. So,
Correct.
very good. Yeah. And one of the other things that we hear about that may be a little bit confusing, our purpose of our podcast today is really to talk about the different ways that you could help people in their homes with their medications, with their medication compliance, and providing those services.
Mhm.
So you provide compliance packaging. Tell me
Right.
about what type of packaging you do and
Mm.
how you work that in homes or even independent living facilities,
Sure.
that type of thing.
So if a lot of times it usually originates from a family member that is usually out of town or whatnot, and mom or dad or whoever they're representing is having problems remembering when to take their medications. So they'll ask us if we have any solutions that we can use to help the client. Everybody's familiar with the traditional pill minders that you get for free. They're usually giving out the little simple 1 week strip, and you can put your medication in there. Problem with those is that it's only for that whole day. So you might have morning, afternoon, and evening meds mixed into one cup. It's still requiring somebody to sort through and make sure that they're taking the correct medication at the correct time. So what we did is in looking at different systems that are out there, what we have is like what we call a bingo card. So all the medications are packaged like you would get, like any over-the-counter medication, where you take the medication, use your thumb, and push the medication through. So what we do is customize those to each client. So what we'll do is, for example, on a Monday, It'll be the strip will be, it'll include a whole week in one package, and it'll have Monday at the top, and it'll have morning, afternoon, lunchtime, evening, bedtime. And we will put the medications in according to the time that they're supposed to take the medication. So as long as they know that, okay, first thing in the morning, I've got to take my medications. Okay, it's Tuesday. They go right to it. They pop the medication out at that time. All the correct medications are right there for them. We take the thinking game out of it. You don't have to have somebody coming to the house to sort the medications out on a weekly basis and all of that. Our technicians will fill the medications, putting them in the appropriate spots for the appropriate times with the appropriate medications. The pharmacist checks it. And then what we do is heat seal it. And then what we'll do is you'll get 4 total cards for a month. We'll take those and deliver them out to the customer every week, or every month. The good thing is like when, clients travel or anything like that, they just take the whole package with them. They've got everything right there. Every medication is listed individually on the back, showing what medications they're taking, what the pill looks like, how often they're supposed to be taking it, and for what they're taking it. And so if there's any discrepancy or any question as to, okay, what medication is in this particular spot, you go right to the back of the card and it lists everything right there for them. So it really takes the guessing work out of when they should be taking the medication and, what medications they should be taking. Additionally, it'll also show you if there's a blister that hasn't been opened and it's past the time that they should have taken it. Obviously, then telltale sign that they missed their medication. A lot of times if, elderly people get, confused or forgetful, so they might completely forget. And if you were just to go in there and ask them, hey, did you take your medication? I think I did, but I'm not quite sure. Well, with this, you look right at the card, and if the medication's there, they obviously didn't take it. So there's no guessing about whether they missed a dose or whatnot. So it kind of helps with ensuring that they're compliant with their medications. And, with elderly people and stuff like that, you want to make sure that if they're on specific, blood thinners, if they're on heart medications, cholesterol medications, kidney medications, those are very imperative to be taking at specific times. So you really don't want to miss a dose on those. So this kind of helps to ensure that, we're doing the labor and the service to make sure that our customers are compliant with their medications that they're taking.
Do you have any patients of Happier at Home, your Happier at Home company, that you're also providing medications in their home too?
We do. So anytime we onboard a new Happier at Home client, we absolutely offer this service to them. If it's something that they would like. So in New York State, we cannot take medication from another pharmacy and take those medications out of their vials and put it into our packaging. That would be considered distribution. So they would have to get their medications from us. So if they don't want to get their medications from us, then obviously we will talk to them about, okay, well, talk to your local pharmacy and see if this is something that they can do. If it's not, let us know. We're more than happy to do all the legwork, get all the prescriptions transferred over to us. Copay is going to be the same, and your copay is your copay. Your insurance company tells whether it's Rite Aid, CVS, or Buffalo Pharmacies, it's going to be what the insurance company says. So from a cost standpoint, the medication cost is going to be the same. But a lot of people like, who they've been dealing with their pharmacies for a long time. They've got that relationship and that loyalty. So we completely get it if they don't want to switch, but we absolutely provide that to them as a tentative option for them.
Yeah, very good. And so in my experience, I'm a registered nurse, and when I was operating my own Happier at Home location, one of the things that we did, and in New York State has to be an RN as well, was to actually set up those pill boxes in the home. So that is a continued solution for the Happier at Home owners. But one of the reasons that I found that families chose to have someone come to the home to set it up each week is because they like to have someone visit. They like to have that nurse lay eyes on their loved one and make sure
Yep.
that they were okay, check in with them, you
Right.
know, have a little conversation. So right now you don't have anyone that you're setting up pill boxes for in their homes, correct?
For the Medicube?
No, just the pill boxes themselves.
No, so because we don't, for our Happier Home locations, we do not have any nurses with our Happier at Home, nor do we have any nurses within our pharmacy organization. Now, technically speaking, a pharmacist could go out there, but that's for us to send the pharmacist out there, it's pretty cost prohibitive.
Too much. Yeah. Yeah. So so we're kind of looking at these different options, compliance packaging, whether it's in the cards. I know some of our other franchisees use the strip packaging. Those work well. And then we have the setup in the home of pill boxes. And as you said, for every state, it is different. There are different requirements to be able to set the medications up in those pill boxes in the home. But then we come to the folks that have dementia, who have memory problems, who maybe are abusing narcotics, that just can't remember if they took them because they're abusing narcotics. So for those people, what kind of solution do you have, maybe with caregivers or even devices to be able to administer medications at home?
Sure. So, outside of the, compliance packaging that we provide, with narcotics it's a tough area because it's, kind of an endemic of society today. So, in those instances, the Medicube works out very well, which is basically a little machine about the size of a Keurig coffee maker. And all those medications are locked into this machine. And basically, it's very similar to the compliance packaging outside of it's a machine that will dispense the medication for them at the appropriate time. So you can really drill down and get very specific with it, with what time the medications are, and make it very, very specific to each individual client. The good thing with that is that it'll set off an alarm. And it can be somebody's voice, it could be an alarm, it could be that the machine will contact their cell phone to tell them to take the medication. Countless opportunities and options to notify the client as to when to take the medications. But the good thing with the Medicube is that it takes a picture of the medication, so you know exactly what's being dispensed at what time. And if that medication comes out and then when the tray pops open, that medication's still there, then okay, they didn't take the medication. It'll also show you if it's being abused and trying to be overridden. So with the Medicube, there's various options. You can just have a basic rental of the machine per month, where it's just basic services where it's going to dispense the medications out for the patient. And we'll come in once a month, fill it for them, and then lock it back up for that month. So it really is a fabulous solution for if there is instances of whether a caregiver might be taking the medication or whatnot. Additionally, with the Medicube, it also allows us to, one of the things that we offer is medication therapy management. So where we will monitor the medication. So if they don't take that medication or they miss it, the machine will know that they didn't take that medication and it notifies us. Then in which case the pharmacist will intervene, get in touch with the client. If it's not the client, that's the point of contact. It could be a family member, it could be a caregiver that's within, that's taking care of them. and we
And the
will
machine
notify
will
them.
send a text message to you to say they missed the dose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So in that instance, that, we'll monitor that on a daily basis for them to ensure that they're being compliant. And and then if need be, then we can, if they're not being compliant, then we can get in touch with the prescriber of said medication and then notify them so that they now have it documented that, okay, they're not being compliant with their medication. We're trying to, get in touch with them. We're not getting in touch with them, and all of that. So that way, now the provider is saying, okay, well, this medication, when the client comes in, and they're saying, okay, it's not making any difference for me, and the medication isn't helping. Well, it's funny because we've gotten calls from your pharmacy that you're not taking the medication because the machine is. So it just helps to streamline that continuity of care from the prescriber down to the point of administration.
Yeah, I love that machine. I love that it gives reminders, the audible reminders, and can
Yep.
just report on that compliance. It really does help
Sure.
increase compliance for those that have those memory issues. And I like the point that you made that if there's anyone else in the home that may want those medications, whether it's Xanax or
Mhm.
something else that they're interested in, that machine's locked. And if you try to pick it up, it actually speaks to you and says, "Hey, put me down." So it's
Correct.
pretty
And then
cool.
it sends an alert to you. It's a great solution for somebody that's still very independent, can do all the everyday things in the home, but maybe getting forgetful as to the medications, and family may not be there. So, it's a good opportunity for the pharmacy to utilize that in this instance because they don't necessarily need a caregiver yet. So this kind of is, basically a medication babysitter that, basically says, okay, you got to take your medication right now. So it's kind of bridging the gap, so to speak.
Very good. It's great. One of the things that I've noticed in my travels when we start, our pharmacy owners start a happier at home location. I go to their location and do a day of marketing. We have a ribbon cutting. It's really a great way for them to start off. But in our marketing to independent living communities and assisted living communities, sometimes, especially the assisted will have agreements with pharmacies for filling their medications.
Correct.
But a lot of the independent living facilities don't have a solution. They are senior apartments. They're not supposed to provide every solution for those people.
Correct.
They're living independently, but this gives a great opportunity for the independent pharmacy owner to develop agreements with them to help maintain their census, which is one of
Mhm.
their main problems, and keep their residents safely in their apartments. So, do you have any advice for people about approaching independent living facilities to develop agreements with them to either provide the medications, have them delivered, or for any of the medication management solutions that we talked about
Sure.
today?
So like you said, with the assisted living, those are usually generally covered by a long-term care pharmacy with a specific contract in place. Now, there are retail pharmacies that will do assisted living. The caveat is that in New York State, being that you're in an assisted living, the resident still has the choice as to which pharmacy they want to go to. So just because, XYZ assisted living facility has a pharmacy contract with somebody, if somebody wanted to go outside and continue to use their independent pharmacy, they absolutely can. So they're protected with regard to that. With regard to the independent side, the compliance packaging really works well for facilities that have day hab programs for seniors where people drop them off. A lot of the PACE programs, aging in place programs, those are really good targets for the pharmacy to go after because those organizations have nurses that are providing the supervision of their medications and all of that. So, PACE is getting paid a fee to make sure that they're taking their medications. So what we have done with one specific one here in Buffalo is have an agreement where we're providing all those medications, and we're providing them the medication therapy management and the detail back to them. So it's actually saved them, because they don't have to have a nurse looking at each individual person line by line with every medication. We're providing them a report of that, and the facility is not having to dedicate nursing time to looking at these things. We're providing them a report. They can gloss over it if there's any discrepancies, and then they can address it. So in this instance, it actually saved the PACE program money because of staffing.
Very good. So saving them money, keeping their residents in place, decreasing injury as a result of non-compliance,
Correct.
reducing hospitalizations because of non-compliance. There's so many reasons
Correct.
that these independent communities
Correct.
can really partner
Typically,
with
if they're
you.
in a PACE program, they're probably more of the non-compliant nature. So they're going to need that supervision. So it is time consuming on the part of the program that is, administering and watching over these people. So, you're dealing with a more at-risk population.
Right. Right. And I know before we started, Todd and I were talking about just what a great model you have for other independent pharmacies, right, Todd? I know I've been talking so much, but
No, this is the gold of these conversations, is hearing from pharmacy owners that have built these businesses. And the Voelkls, Todd and Trent, I've known you for years. You've always been very innovative, but that innovation has provided your community with the services that are desperately needed anyway. I look at the Wall Street Journal, who does different stories on healthcare. They're talking about the need for home care services throughout the country. They've had several stories come up where long-term care facilities are out of either beds or that don't have enough services. That's number one. The Washington Post did an article about independent pharmacies struggling due to vertical integration among our big drug chain stores, the insurance companies, the PBMs that give a lot of power to insurance plus PBM plus mail order, which sucks out the healthcare services of communities. And this same article goes on to say how there are pharmacy deserts throughout the country that are missing their independent community pharmacies. Trent, you have insulated yourself from a lot of what's coming in 2024. We've nicknamed it the DIR fee apocalypse of 2024. And as you and I and Debbie were talking before we started recording, you were bringing up some very strong statistics saying the fall of nearly 40% of all community pharmacies that are privately owned throughout the country. The metrics that I collected from a 2021 report that had NCPDP, NCPA, and some other organizations are saying a 10% reduction. So anywhere from 10% to 40%. If there's 19,000 of them out there, that means that we're talking about 2,000 to nearly 5, maybe 6,000 stores that could be impacted. Think of how many communities are not going to have basic healthcare services for miles and miles and miles away, and the necessary need for that. So when I think of thriving independent community pharmacies, Trent, I think of your model because three things. Number one, you're going to survive, and number two, you're providing your community a needed service. And number three, it's a way for our governments, our state representatives, our, whoever's in charge of helping to help communities to keep their community pharmacy services and also healthcare services. They need to understand there needs to be more that we can bolt into these community pharmacies that you have done from the beginning. Can you talk to our listeners about what steps, if they're a community pharmacy, they got a good reputation, most of them do, what do you say that they do to get to that next level in implementing a home care service and also growing out maybe a long-term care or assisted living service as well through their pharmacy?
So, if personally, I think the home care is the great model to go after because it's a private pay model. You're not dealing with insurance audits. You're not dealing with DIR fees and all of that. So, it's a different model, and it's going to take you time to build it up. But it absolutely has been, a stalwart. It's as far as income producing. So from that aspect, that would be my number one. Not just because we're doing this podcast on Happier at Home, but it's the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
And I can show actual results of what it does financially. Getting involved in servicing long-term assisted living facilities and stuff like that from a retail pharmacy, it's very labor intensive. It's you've got a larger client base, so you've got a typical assisted living might be 150, anywhere from 100 to 200 beds. So, and you're generally speaking, you're going to capture probably around 90% of those people. But it's not something you can just walk into. You've got to understand, there's different sets of rules from each individual state as to documentation, orders, packaging. You're dealing with medication cards. So there's a lot of research and stuff. You're not just going to pick up and go to the closest assisted living and say, hey, we want to do your prescriptions. There's a lot of legwork in that so you've got to really do your homework and figure out what model how you're going to do it and stuff like that. You're just not gonna, it's not something you're going to learn on the fly. You really need to know what you're doing. So but again, it's increased revenue and stuff like that, and it is guaranteed business. But it is a labor intensive model. Case in point, why you don't see a lot of nationals in that market, because it is a labor intensive business platform.
And if you are committing yourself to get into that, you do need to understand who is supplying them currently, because if they have some of these facilities are national facilities, they're based in, let's say, for example, Arizona, and they have many locations across the country. Well, they may have a contract, and it doesn't matter who that local facility wants to go with. The corporate is dictating who they go with. So understand it's not a given that even though you want to do it and you're setting yourself up to do it, you need to do your homework to make sure that your money and time.
In case in point, if they have a contract, you might not be able to get a crack at that business for 3 years.
Right.
So, again, it's kind of like the funeral industry. You get one crack at it, and after it's gone, you don't, you're out of it. So, there is different avenues to that. So there are good and bad.
Right. Yeah. And let's see. So you also you chose to get into the DME arena as well. That type of thing. So how is that working for you? And do you do any private pay DME?
So our clientele with our location, so we do some private pay, but generally speaking, Medicare is the primary payer for a lot of people that need those sorts of services. The medical equipment is, good. It's not as lucrative as it once was, the different areas that were really good. Again, it's all consolidation. So the medical equipment is a good business, but now you've got the hospitals that have their own DME companies. So they're obviously, upon discharge, they're referring to their own organization for supplies. We did a ton of orthopedic bracing. I mean, we were huge with orthopedic bracing, And in New York State, physicians were not allowed to provide their own bracing. Well, that changed a number of years ago. So guess what? That dried up. So now the physicians are referring to themselves, and which happens to be their own PT group, and they've got their own MRI center. So again, everybody's, because the insurance industry is really screwed everything up, everybody's trying to, rather than having somebody refer it out, they're keeping it within because they need to, because what they're getting for a med visit is gone way down. And the labor to file all these claims, and dealing with HIPAA and dealing with HR issues. I mean, we've become so regulated these days, it's impossible to just have one person doing all these things. So you've got to have multiple layers. So they're doing more work for less money. So obviously they're looking for other avenues to offset that. So that's why they start turning and referring to themselves. So, it's a good business, but again, it's not as lucrative as once was. I think the underlying theme here is that the companion care business is a private pay business. You're not dealing with insurance. The barriers to entry are minimal. Getting involved, and you got a good personality, you're going out, you're shaking hands with decision makers, you can do it. You don't have to deal with, an insurance company coming in and doing an audit from something from 3 years ago that you dispensed because the prescriber forgot to dot an I, and they're going to take that claim back, and we're going to extrapolate that, because if that happened on one prescription, we're going to extrapolate that for the past 3 years and assume that out of the 100 prescriptions that we audited, we found 1% of in this little random sample. So we're going to assume that 1% continued over the 3 years. So now all of a sudden you've got this huge bill, and guess what? They're not going to pay you for the next 3 months. So it's
horrible. What
yeah.
I think one of the things that you said also was that these companies are referring to themselves.
Mhm.
So this would be the beauty of an independent pharmacy owning a home care company,
Mhm.
because I know that many community pharmacies out there have their customers coming in, talking to them about what's going on with mom and dad. They just came out of rehab, et cetera. And for many years, you all have been referring them to
Mhm.
other home care companies.
Correct.
So being able to say, you know what, we have a solution to that problem, and
Mhm.
then you can refer to yourself and keep
Mhm.
that money under your roof.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Hey, Debbie, I do a lot of stalking on Google about people and their businesses, especially our pharmacy owners. The Happier at Home out of Buffalo, New York, has some amazing reviews. Very proud to see that. But it's a pioneer's way of thinking to say, where are the gaps in service? How can I fill in those gaps as a pharmacy owner? And will this be something that I can scale? Because just like Trent keeps saying, it's intensive up front with some of the labor, some of the setup, some of the design. But now that you're entrenched, now that you're servicing and people are getting used to this and the reviews are coming back, and it's just like, just keep building methodically. And talk to our owners about how you made the decision to open another location in a completely different state. You went from New York to Texas.
Yeah, that was an interesting scenario. So we were presented with the opportunity for a franchisee who decided that they wanted to retire and stuff like that. So Debbie had reached out and said, would you consider taking it over and stuff like that. So that just kind of, fell in our lap, so to speak. So it's not that we're actively looking for things around the country and stuff like that. So that one just kind of, happened to work that way, but it's been good. The model's the model. It doesn't really matter where you are in the country. The only difference is some states do require you to be licensed. Like in Texas, you have to be licensed. So when we switched over ownership, we had to get licensed and stuff like that. It's not a heavy lift, and it's generally speaking very easy to do. It's just it's a paperwork trail, and we hired a consultant that helped us to get through it, and we got our certification on the first pass. So but again, it's the doesn't matter what state you're at. It's the model is the model. It works, and what Debbie's figured and her team have figured out everything that there is in every scenario. And you can talk to anybody. It's what you put into it. And if you want to put a lot into it, you're going to do extremely well. And if you want to go against the grain and not listen to tried and true practices, then you're going to probably have a little bit more difficulty. That's the reason why most people go with a franchise rather than doing it on their own, because she's already figured it out, what works, what doesn't work. So if you want to do it, follow the program and it will work. There's no question.
Thank you.
I'll
never forget that you and I were on a call with someone who wasn't following the process and kind of struggling. And you said, hey, listen, just follow the process. Just do what Debbie says and don't try to like ad lib, and it works. It's not that hard. So
he wanted to spend his money in areas that were, in my view, antiquated and not what the current trend is. And he was blowing a lot of money out the window doing them. And, Debbie asked me, can you talk to him, what you're doing and stuff like that, and try and talk him to, consider stop doing it. And he didn't. And he burned himself out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
we provide. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The algorithm for success is always the pathway that I'm going to want to take, and bringing in the people that understand how to do it. And the model has proven itself time and again now with Debbie's insertion and the natural impact that it has and connection that it has with community pharmacies. It just makes absolute sense. What's on the horizon? What's on the horizon, Trent, for your business expansion? Are there other areas that you're thinking, well, once again, it's a need, therefore maybe you take advantage of that? Share us about the expansion of Buffalo Pharmacies.
The only expansion that we're doing is strictly in the long-term care arena. That's really the only growth that we see taking place at this point. Retail wise, no.
Understandable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I already asked Trent if he was going to be at the NCPA in Florida. Unfortunately, he's not going to be there, but I'm going to be there. Todd, I'm sure you're going to be there, right?
Are you sure it's going to be taking place still with the hurricane?
Oh my goodness. I know, but hopefully it's not going to create that much devastation at all. But that's a little ways away. So hopefully it'll be okay.
Hopefully it will be. I have family there, so we're all watching it as it's coming across. So I'm excited. I'm excited, Debbie, that you're empowering our community pharmacies with another division that they can grow and be very proud of. And more importantly, I like seeing profits for community pharmacies that are doing things that are good for their community anyway. And I like that cyclical effect because it really can start to take hold and provide another reputation for that community pharmacy above and beyond what they've already invested in. Every single one of these independent community pharmacies are vested in their community already. And now this is just another tool, another service that they can offer that we know that their communities are in need of.
You have to do it. We really have to diversify, as we've said, and find those other ways of making money. And of course, Happier at Home being the private pay source of revenue is perfect to do that. And as Trent said, it also helps to increase your revenue through your pharmacy with the compliance packaging with your patients.
Yep.
So it works hand in hand. Both work well together. So any final thoughts, Todd?
I'm just wanting to encourage listeners who haven't looked into this yet, to look into, but go to buffalopharmacies.com, ask questions of Trent. If there's a connection, I know that there's a contact information source there, just to reach out. But reach out to actually Debbie and her team, because they're going to sit there and actually do an assessment. There's an entire process. It's like we're setting you up from the beginning not to fail, because this is a reflection on the quality of this franchise throughout the nation. Therefore, just reach out, ask questions, take the time needed to do it right. You heard from Trent that he did it methodically. He laid it out correctly. It wasn't like he just jumped into it willy-nilly without a plan. You have to have a plan. That's why Debbie and her team are so important. Debbie, give us a place to tell the listeners who might not have seen the website and or connected with you how to get a hold of you.
If you visit our website at happierAtHomeFranchise.com, it gives a lot of information. You can go to the FAQ, the frequently asked questions tab, and there are many short little videos that I've made about things that I hear from pharmacy owners as questions, concerns, and I walk through each of those questions in a short video. There's a lot of information on there. You could see, if you go to our regular happieratHome.com site, you could see where we have locations currently. And on our website, the happierAtHomeFranchise.com, you could just submit an inquiry and we'll reach out to you. It comes right across my desk and across Dave's desk, who's our VP of sales, and he can make a quick call for you. And then once we know that you're cleared and we feel that you would be a great owner, then you'll be speaking with me and looking at the territory, stepping through the demographics of the territory, what it looks like. And that's actually one of the really fun steps. So, and we'll bring you through the process, just like I brought Trent through it a number of years ago.
Excellent.
Yep.
Trent, this has been a big deal for us as the OG Happier at Home pharmacy, independent pharmacy fusion person who innovator. I'm going to call you the OG fusion innovator, because you did see this as the future. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you. It's been a great ride.
Yep. I've loved watching you grow. Now he has 3 locations of Happier at Home. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, Happier at Home team, Debbie, for this episode of Happier at Home PRN. Trent, thank you so much for sharing your story. This was inspirational. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
See you next time.
Have a great day.
Take care.